Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a new episode of The Last Best Hope for Conversation, your Babylon 5 podcast. Joining me in the CNC is Karen.
Hello, everyone.
Lou.
Howdy, everyone.
And I am Jesse Jackson. Or am I purple? Or am I green? We are talking the Geometry of Shadows, which is the third episode of Season 2. Ivanova deals with a Drazi custom, which only occurs once every 5 years. Techno-mages arrive on the station. And because someone brought this up, I'm going to try to remember to do this. And if I don't, you guys remind me. Written by JMS, directed by Michael Vager. And if you go to him, Michael Vager's got a long, pretty impressive resume. Has done a lot of genre and mainstream directing.
Okay.
So, quick thoughts, Lou.
I would say that this episode would not be won't be my last battlefield.
Okay. And Karen?
I have very mixed feelings about this one. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Mixed feelings.
Wow. All right. So, I remember being very excited. And I don't mean as in 5-10 years ago. I mean as in 3 or 4 weeks ago. Oh boy, we've hit season 2. Oh, it's going to be all great. And then I go, oh, wait a minute. Maybe they weren't all, 9s and 10s. So I think this will be fun. Mm-hmm. I do want to cover, I hope you guys enjoyed Michael Ansara.
Michael Ansara, yeah,
yes.
He's good.
Yes, he
highlighted the episode.
Yeah,
he was the voice of Mr. Freeze on Batman the Animated Series for many years, but I think most of us will know him as Kang from Star Trek the Original Series and returned multiple times.
Yep.
A truly, if you couldn't have gotten, now see, Lou, you caught me.
Uh-oh. On names?
Yeah. Like Earl Jones, like he could have been the voice of Darth Vader.
Yeah.
James, okay, yes. James Earl Jones.
Yeah.
If James Earl Jones wasn't available.
Right.
Because that is a great voice.
He's got a great voice. Yeah.
Fantastic voice. Very, very regal, very authoritative. Yeah.
Why'd you have to bring Batman into it? Because now I'm sad about Kevin Conroy.
I do want to give it just a few moments. Kevin Conroy did pass. Very sad. My favorite Kevin Conroy story. I never met him at a convention. Just it didn't work out. He was very big in conventions, but he was on one of Kevin Smith's podcasts, and Kevin Smith made the argument that he is Kevin Smith's Batman in a lot of ways.
Right.
Told the story after 9/11. He was upset and concerned, like everyone, wanted to volunteer. He reached out to some people. They said, what we need is we have to feed these first responders. We have to give them breaks. And he's like, hey, I'm an actor. I know how to cook. Because, like you either know how to be a waiter or you know how to be a cook if you're an actor during the slow times. So he was at one of these aid stations they had set up. He was back scrambling eggs, cooking bacon, just, doing a short order cook. And the people who brought the food out told the first responders, you know who's cooking your food, don't you? No, Batman.
Batman.
What?
Yeah.
What do you mean? And
that's awesome.
Yeah. And so it's like, no, he isn't. And all of a sudden, Kevin Conroy in that voice, I am vengeance. I am the knight. I am Batman.
Yeah, he's definitely up there in my Batman favorite list.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Back to Babylon 5.
Yeah, sorry.
So no. I'm glad you brought that up. I had made a note to mention him and sending a lot of love to his family and all his fans.
And, he overshadowed Gallagher dying.
Yes. Right.
And I went and saw Gallagher once a long time ago, and it was the weirdest experience I've ever had, I think.
bet.
Anyway, okay.
All right.
Sorry.
So we really only have 2 storylines this time. So let's start with Ivanova and the Drazis. Sheridan, in a funny way, tells Susan that she is no longer a lieutenant commander, but a commander. I thought that was very sweet the way he did it. Shows that they have a relationship, shows how proud he is of her. And he gives her an assignment. And he says, as a commander now, there's things you need to do to give me time to do other stuff. Sheridan is a good leader. You delegate. And so turns out that Drazis are beating the living daylights out of each other, and she's got to solve the problem. I'll start with you this time, Karen. Talk to me about purple-green Drazis.
Okay, number one, having Ivanova do diplomacy is questionable in my mind, but it made for a decent storyline. I did see that she broke her foot in real life, and so that's why she broke her foot in the storyline, just as a little note. I thought her trying to understand what their conflict was probably the most interesting part of this, and that she didn't realize that there was absolutely no conflict that they were fighting over. This was just a thing that they did, like a ceremony type thing. And the way she resolved it, it makes me think that she's going to be the out of the box thinker, because we've lost, why am I forgetting his name now? I keep thinking Sinclair, and it's not Sinclair. It's the other one.
Yeah.
Sheridan. No, this is Sheridan.
Yeah, we lost Sinclair. So Sinclair was someone who did out-of-box thinking.
Okay, so she's going to be like the new Sinclair out-of-the-box thinking thing.
You think Susan picked up a few things working with him?
I think so. Especially, when she realized that she was going to be the new leader of whatever, the purple or the green or whatever she was. And then that's how she decided she was going to solve everything. Because that's one of those, hey, it's a loophole. I'm going to take it and I'm going to solve the problem. So,
okay. Lou?
Well, this episode reminded me a lot of my opening statement, which is why I use it, is the Star Trek episode, Let This Be Your Last Battlefield, which was a episode predicated on the conceit that 2 races are on a planet whose skin colors were reversed, basically wiped each other out. And you've got a microcosm of that in this episode. I'm surprised that JMS didn't use red and blue as colors. That would have been more on point, but we'll go with the purple-green. And it's just one of the strengths of science fiction is that you can take a real-world situation and take it out of the context that it's in and put it in another setting, and then you can realize how silly it is. And the fact that these Drazi are fighting over who's purple and who's green, in a lot of ways boils down to some of the issues happen in the real world, that if you could just take a step back and look at it and say, you know what, we're all the same. And this whole thing about purple green is really silly. And of course, there's much more layers and what would you say, complexity in real world situations, and emotions obviously run into it as well. But it just shows that problem was silly, and the solution that she ended up getting was silly too. I mean, she just basically took the purple scarf with the star on it, and that solved the whole problem. So it's from a social commentary point of view, it's a pretty simplistic lens on real world situations. From Susan's character point of view, it was a good episode, as Karen mentioned, because she's not a diplomat. Far from it. It would be making Worf on Star Trek your ambassador. And so, but it's good to take a fish out of water storyline. And I thought from that perspective, it was pretty good. The only thing I had off the top was when he gave her that assignment, I thought, isn't this really a security Garibaldi issue? And so that was weird as well. But yeah, it was okay, but because it was so, well, from our perspective, so silly and simplistic, it didn't really hit on the dramatic side of things. So it was it was just a little too simplistic for me to really get that invested in it from that point of view. But I did like it for Susan's character.
Yeah, I love the fact that they addressed that. The JMS said the head Drazi goes, you do the same thing. You fight for colors. You fight for a pizza cloth, your flag. Mm-hmm. And Susan's like, no, it's not totally the same thing at all. And then you could make the argument it is. Mm-hmm. I liked the comedy of it, that the idea of, and they played it really well. Mm-hmm. So what are your differences? Green, purple, okay. So that means green, purple, like, and
right.
And then the idea that she just lucked into a solution, right? I mean, this wasn't a thought of how she was going to do this. She has no idea. She went crazy when she took one of the very beginning. She took one of the little scarves and put it on. Mm-hmm. I thought it would have been better if she had taken them both off and switched them versus making that person had both. And then,
although making someone have both colors really threw a wrench into things.
It did.
So I think that was even more impactful, but I expected her to switch them.
Yeah. And then I did love the idea that when she pulled that, and he just explains, person who pulls that is leader. Mm-hmm. And she's like, what? And then he goes that, well, this was designed before we hauled off worlds, and it's still in committee. And he looks almost sheepish, like, and then she's
like, that's the dumb part of it.
Yeah, that's the dumb part of it. Not that we're doing this. And so once she did that, I do think it was very smart of her to go, okay, we're going to dye everyone the same color. And then therefore we will have peace. Mm-hmm. And I agree with you, Lou. It is a very simple story, but I loved the humor of it. And I loved watching Claudia Christian get a chance to show how happy she was about being promoted and how much she wanted to work this. Mm-hmm. The other part of this they did use is Garibaldi isn't sure he wants to come back. He has lost his mojo. He's like, I had a snake in the garden all this time and I didn't realize it. Maybe I've lost my fastball. Can I do any more cliches? And then he knows, because he knows how she acts, he knows how she does, he's able to figure. And we do get that funny scene where he's like trying to do a door-to-door salesman kind of that. And if anyone needs help on here, yell. That I thought was really nice. And the idea of at the celebration dinner, he goes, I'm paranoid. I'm skeptical. And that's why I think I'm need. And they even make a joke about that, right? He goes, what are you saying about? So do you like, and also I'd love to hear your thoughts on how our commander Sheridan handled when he walked into Garibaldi's quarters and he's playing with his PPG. And I think it's very underplayed, but it's clear he's thinking about killing himself. Mm-hmm. So Karen, what do you think?
Yeah, I didn't get that right off at all. I mean, I thought maybe he was just doing something that he knows how to do without thinking. But I saw people talking about it on the Lurker's Guide, and I thought that does make a little bit of sense. Like, he's at a low point right now. He got shot in the back by one of his own guys. He couldn't stop the president from being assassinated, and that happened. And he lost the chick that he's been in love with forever. So he's really low. And part of him is thinking, it'd be better for me to off myself than go back to drinking. I mean, and that's how low he is. And I think Sheridan coming into the quarters and just while he's talking, putting the gun back in the holster was a tactful way to do it. Not to jump to any conclusions, or he might have been suspecting it, but he wasn't 100% sure. But hey, let's put this away just to get it off the table. And one of the things that was like a highlight of this episode was Sheridan. Bruce Boxleitner is magnetic as Sheridan, I think. And he knows how to do something under the radar. There were a couple things that like he realized something was happening with the mages, and he goes, and just a tiny look on his face that clues that in, where I think with Sinclair, Michael O'Hare, he wasn't quite as nuanced. I'm sorry, I'm bad with names today. I'm not remembering anything.
I'm just laughing because me and Jesse were talking before you came on, and we were just like stumbling over names too.
Oh, okay.
And that's what we just said. We were like, how can we not? But yeah, we were like, well, I couldn't think of James Earl Jones, right?
Yeah. Okay.
No, I get you.
So I'm forgiven.
It's something in the air tonight. Yes.
Yeah. So, okay, Phil Collins. So, yeah, I feel like he wasn't as nuanced as Bruce Boxleitner, and I appreciate that. And I also appreciate the ease in which he has being Sinclair. It looks effortless. And especially in that scene where he's with Garibaldi in his quarters, where he's not shining him on at all. He's saying maybe it would be easier for you to give in and go away, quote unquote. But I see a value in not taking the easy road. And I would really appreciate your knowledge and your help while I navigate taking over the station. And he wasn't, like I said, he wasn't shining him on. He wasn't boosting his ego, and he wasn't, why can I not think of the word? He wasn't like talking down to him.
No.
And he just was matter of fact. He said what he meant. And while being tactful. I thought that was really smart of him. And also the scene where he goes to visit Ivanova in the sickbay. God, my brain is not working today.
That's okay.
Where he goes to visit her in the sickbay, and
we'll fix it in post.
Okay. And when he talks to her, he says, I think you've done a good job so far. Keep it up. I agree with you. Stay on that tack. And then he goes to leave, and she's like, won't you come with me? Nah. And he doesn't even look back. He just goes, no, I trust you. It's all good. It just seems super easy. And I really appreciate that. So in both of those storylines, I feel like I am digging his commander, his captain.
Command style.
Yeah, much more than Sinclair. And that's not saying Sinclair was horrible. He wasn't. He just wasn't as nuanced.
Yeah. So, Lou, what are your thoughts on that?
I talked too long.
No, you didn't at all.
No, that's fine. And it's good that you talked that long, because I totally did not pick up on any suicidal vibes from Garibaldi, because I just don't think that his character would even consider doing that. I mean, he's been knocked down hard before, and he picked himself back up. So I just don't buy that he would even consider suicide. I just don't think it's in his character. So that whole subtext of that scene, I totally missed that. I just thought he was contemplating what he was going to do next, and he was just doing something that he was like a ritual that he was familiar with as he was thinking about his options. So I didn't get any of the suicidal vibes from that scene.
Let me interrupt just a moment. So the
Sure.
idea, like you see sometimes a character, and you guys might know what I'm talking about, like with a Zippo lighter, they open the lighter, they light it, they close it, open the lighter. They just keep doing that as almost like often when I'm talking to you guys, I have poker chips in my hand and I'm just flipping them back and forth, right? Right. You know, I have something in my hand.
Lou and I are holding up things as well.
Yes, exactly.
I have a pen.
And I think the way JMS wrote it, we're both right.
Okay.
I think it could be either way. So continue your thought, and then I'll add a few more, Lou.
So I do agree with Karen. I do like Sheridan's command style in that he's letting the individual that he's dealing with work it out on their own. Like, he's not directing them. He's just telling them his position, and he'll respect whatever decision they make. He's not going to force anybody to do something that they don't want to do. His command style is the type of style in business where you work the situation or problem with the customer that you get their engagement and their buy-in to the problem so that it's not you telling them, this is what you've got to do to fix your problem. It says, what do we have to do to fix this problem? Which is a subtle difference, but it's a big difference because then you've got the client's buy-in and investment into fixing the situation as well. So that's the command style that I'm seeing from Sheridan. And I got the name right. Yay. And so I appreciate that from that perspective. And again, the simplicity of the situation of the Drazi and setting it up so that Garibaldi could help Susan solve the problem. I thought this was pretty, again, I thought it was pretty simplistic as well, that he knows her well enough to know that she would always stay on her palm length, that she wouldn't just send it off as a message and then go off and do something else. So that was okay. But the thing that really struck me out of everything that happened in Garibaldi's storyline is the line where he said, "I don't trust anybody." And I thought to myself, well, that's why you've got relationship problems, because you don't trust anybody. So I thought that one line was his character in a nutshell. And in order for him to actually have a long, meaningful relationship, he's going to have to learn how to trust somebody. And maybe that's something that Sheridan will help him learn. I don't know.
Well, great. I did not think we were going to go there, but I think a great topic. Bruce Boxleiter has boyish charm, right? He is so charming. He has those matinee good looks. He is so charming. He has a sincere smile on his face, not like a Morden smile that just you honestly trust him. And like the idea of, oh yeah, the paperwork came through. Do you want some juice? And like, she's like, what? And him, and I love the idea that you pointed out, Karen, that he slowly walks over, he picks up Garibaldi's gun and puts it in the holster while he's talking to him. And he knows him saying, oh, no, we need you. You're good at your job. Garibaldi will not hear. But to have him say, I think you have value. I value you. And I will hold your position as long as I can. Gave him, and I could almost hear Garibaldi going, I don't like new people. I don't like old people. I don't like people at all.
Get off my lawn.
Yeah. And I do think the character feels like he doesn't let many people in, but once he does, you're in his circle no matter what you do, right? Like he is going to be 100% behind you as he lets them in. So I think that was really beautiful. And I love the idea that we don't know, was he thinking of suicide or not? It just totally depends on you. And I agree with Lou that is not his character. That is not his character. That is not his personality. But if you were totally confident, I know this station more than anyone else. I know people more than anyone else. That's why I'm good at this job. And oh my goodness, my number 2 was a backstabbing SOB all this time. A core principle has been broken, and therefore maybe he doubts everything about himself. So really well done. Yeah.
I could see on a subconscious level, maybe he was thinking about it, but I don't think consciously he was. So maybe that's why, that's another way you could interpret that scene as well.
I like that one a lot. Yeah.
And so doing that with the gun is something that he does by rote, but it's also putting something in his head that he's not really thinking about. Or, that he's not.
And Sheridan, who doesn't know him, might take it as that. So there's that scene plays on a lot of different levels. So I don't think there's anyone, like you said, Jesse, there's not one right interpretation of it. But that's good. That's the best kind of art that leaves room open for the audience to interpret it based on their life experiences and the way they see the show and character.
And I'm sure that Jerry Dole and Bruce Boxleiter loved that scene together. As actors, I'm sure they loved that. All right, let's move to dreamers, shakers, singers, makers. We have we've already talked, high-profile guest star, truly one of the most iconic characters in Star Trek universe, then JMS moves him over to play a part. This is a one and done, which is not spoiler because they say they're done, right?
Right.
So techno-mages is showing up. Londo's like, oh, it's a techno-mage. If you only seeing one is miraculous. If you see more than one, it doesn't bear well. And all of a sudden there's tons of them. And he had a Rifa, who is one of the Weasley Centauri leaders. They're all talking about when the Emperor dies, there's going to be a void, and maybe we can put one of our people in. Once again, very timely in a lot of ways about trying to get your person in. And so Londo thinks it'd be a great idea to get a techno-mage blessing. And he sends Veer, and Stephen Furst is, I think, amazing in this, where he just sits there, keeps repeating the same line. They go, you don't scare very easily. I work for Londo. There's not a lot that scares me. We end up, there's a whole storyline to it. I think it's a good storyline. And we end with a very great line where Eric says, as I look at you, Ambassador Mollari, I see a great hand reaching out of the stars. The hand is your hand. And I hear sounds. The sounds of billions of people calling your name. And Londo says, my followers. And Eric says, your victims.
Dun, dun, dun.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, Lou, your turn. What do you think of the Techno-Mage storyline and Londo's misfortunes?
Yeah, this, obviously seeing Michael Ansara and just hearing his voice automatically puts you in a place where you're just ready to enjoy the storyline. And for the most part, I did. I agree with you that Stephen Furst played the comedy aspects of it quite well. Michael Ansara was, appropriate wizardly and very Gandalfish, I thought. And his name, Elric, is a reference to a Michael Moorcock character, I believe.
I believe so.
Fantasy writer. So he's this interesting combination of technology and magic. Unfortunately, during the time the show was filmed, the technology part of it didn't look all that great, but it was what it was. And we've gotten to know the show's technical capabilities. So you go with it. But I thought that hindered it a little bit. I'm conflicted on the whole techno-mage conceit, and because what was their purpose before this episode, and what were they doing? And if they're as smart as they seem to be, because they obviously know what's coming down the pike and they know Londo's part in it, why are they just vamoosing? Why aren't they trying to warn people or help people? I understand from the series perspective, this is foreshadowing 101, and that from that perspective, that storyline works quite well. But I was a little disappointed that this powerful group of individuals are just deciding to get out of Dodge. And so that was disappointing to me. So yeah, I'm a little conflicted on this. I love Michael Ansara. I thought he played the part well in that. I just I was not totally in love with the way they were portrayed and used in the episode.
Karen?
Agreed. I would say that this storyline was a solid storyline, but it wasn't one that I was in love with. It was good. There were a lot of plot holes, though. Like you said with Veer, I loved how he played the comedy in this. Like when he takes the drink and he just falls backwards. That was funny. I mean, I literally laughed out loud at that scene. I think he's a good actor, by the way, was a good actor. I'm very sorry. I was sad when he died, by the way, super sad. Like I said, I mean, Michael Ansara was perfect for this gig, but there were severe plot holes in it, I thought. I thought the same thing Lou did. Why are they just going away? Why take even if they are going to emigrate and get out of the way of whatever's happening, why do they not say something ahead of time? I mean, is it because they know they can't do anything? Is it? And I didn't get any precognition vibes from them. So how do they know that stuff? I mean, their whole thing is that they use technology in a way that seems like magic. I mean, that was their whole vibe, right? That it's not magic. It's just a severely futuristic type of technology. So time travel? Is that how they're finding out that they have? So all these things are going through my mind. Okay, it's very contradictory. Do they see into the future because of this? Or do they really have some sort of superpower? I mean, I feel like there was a lot of stuff that contradicted itself just in this episode, which is not compelling to me. But I do believe that it set up a lot of stuff, which is something I'm a fan of. And the acting was really great. They took what they had. And Michael Ansara is just one of those actors that is super compelling to watch. And seeing him act alongside Bruce Boxleitner, who, like I just said, I think is also very charismatic in his role, was fantastic. And then you throw Londo in there, who again has that certain type of charm. The three of them together made for a really great scene where Londo is going to attempt to record them all the while saying pretty low that you recorded me. I thought that part of it was easy to watch. But like I said, just some really big questions left, plot holes, all that sort of thing. I also got in my head when we saw him repeating the same thing over and over. I was like, there are 4 lights, from Picard, because he just kept repeating that over and over. It popped into my head because we talk about Star Trek a lot while we talk about B5.
Sure.
And he played it as a type of comedy thing.
Right.
And I assumed that creature was like a holographic creature. It wasn't real. I mean, again, I have no idea. Are they porting that creature in and out? Is it real? So, I mean, is he playing it so it's nebulous? We don't know whether they have powers or not. Are they saying that they use technology in a way that looks like magic? I mean, I think about that all the time. Like, if someone from 100 years ago saw us using a cell phone,
right,
they would think we were magical, because that's just out of their realm of thinking. So, yeah, I have to think that they're doing something with technology to see into the future, whether that's time travel or just using it as a way to kind of cheat a telepathy type thing. I mean, I don't know. So I'm left confused, but also anticipating where this is headed. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I just want to add, Karen, because like the whole thing about their ability to see the future and that, I think their technology is at such a state that they have excellent statistical and predictive software or analysis that they're able to predict these things that they're talking about with Londo and that. It reminds me of a book I read a long time ago from Robert Silverberg called The Stochastic Man, and it was basically his version of Asimov's Foundation, where he could use statistical analysis and that to predict what would happen to the human race on a large scale and things like that. And I just think that these techno-mages are a flavor of those two conceits. So I do think everything that they're doing is based on technology, but because they're so advanced at it, it's to regular people, it does look like magic.
Okay.
Yes to all the above. Like, what technology allows you to be on top and then to move almost immediately? Do you have a personal transporter? Then why aren't we doing that to everyone? Okay,
yep.
let's hand wave. I did get the feeling that this is similar to, and I'm glad you brought up Foundation. I felt the same thing, that it was that because of their science and because of what they do, they're able to foresee what they think is going to happen. And they even said, if we're wrong, we'll see what happens. So I liked this storyline. Once again, I'm helped because I know where we're going. And I know the path that Londo is going. And I think you guys have already talked about, you're already seeing that perhaps he's on a bad path.
Yep.
And to hear that foreshadowing where people are calling you out and he's my followers, your victims. You're like, wow. So really well done. I like the idea. I loved, and that's why I mentioned that when I thought, once again, Bruce Boxleiter nailed that at the end when he looked away and said, part of me that still believes in magic, was done really well.
Mm-hmm.
It is a lot of back and forth, and the acting between them were really well done. And there was the comedy of now Londo has shares in Firefly, his money's all gone, and will I have to pay? And he goes, yes, you will be paying for a long time, but not for our silly spell. So yes, very much a setting up.
I also appreciated the conversations with Rifa.
Yeah.
Whoever this was. I mean, the guy who wants to topple the Centauri government.
Yes.
And is that kind of a mirror to what's going on with the Earth government?
Yeah.
And are they saying, one of the things I'm thinking is, are they saying that there's going to be a lot of corruption with this by also giving us that Earth storyline? Because good science fiction does mirroring.
Right.
And I feel like maybe that's a chance for them to mirror these two storylines that are happening at the same time. And I like that Londo plays it really cool with Rifa. I feel like him relying on Morden, he feels that that's a weakness. And so he plays it up like he's this brilliant tactician with Rifa, I'm not telling you anything. But I think in the back of his head, he's like, I can't tell him because it'll make me look weak. It's not me doing it. It's someone else. And also I have this debt to this person that might also corrupt me. So there were lots of layers there, and I appreciated that conversation.
I'm right there with you because he has an ace up his sleeve and he doesn't want anyone to know about it.
Yeah, but he still doesn't know whether that ace is a good thing or a bad thing. I feel like. Yeah.
No, I think you're exactly right. He doesn't know. And so he has to be careful. And so, yeah, I think that is perfect. We will see what happens. But I'm very, very happy that you guys enjoyed this and keep going for there. Anything else we need to talk about in the episode? Did I miss anything for us to discuss? By the way, there is the 14 words that will make someone love you forever does come back to play, not in the actual series, but there was a series of books published. They had a Psychor trilogy, and I know there was a Centauri trilogy. And the reason I remember the Centauri, because Peter David wrote them. And Peter David's one of my favorite writers. And it is he uses that again in the book in a very interesting way. It is always interesting when they're out of their uniform. I always think their actual uniforms look like uncomfortable, like they're a little tight around the stomach. And so, yeah. All right. Ranks. Lou, you want to go first?
This one's tough because I did like the performances, but I think we've made it pretty clear that there was a lot of soft plot points that didn't help the show. So I'm going to go 7 messy shadow geometries.
All right. Karen?
Yeah, I'm going to give it a little bit more, but not much. And it's mostly, it's for the performances more than anything. And also the setups, where I feel like they're cluing us into stuff that I'm not sure of yet. But so I'm going to give it 7.5. What are they? Apple blossoms, cherry blossoms?
Cherry blossoms. Whatever. That was cool. Yeah. That was a nice thing that he did that because he mentioned smelling that. Yeah. Okay, good. Well, I am going to be a little bit higher. I'm going to do 8 out of 10 purple and green scarves. They're Mardi Gras. They're ready for Mardi Gras. So there we go. All right.
And they also mentioned a cake. And then so is it a king
there we
cake?
Go. Yes, we have cake.
Is there a baby baked into it?
Yes. All right, we're going to get to feedback, but I was going to specifically read yesterday. Cheryl sent an email that I thought was interesting, and she sent us a link to. I have never read the Harrington books, but I know how good they are. But it's a beautiful link about how the writers of the Hunter Harrington books do a lot of exposition. She talks a little about Sheridan's backstory, but what I thought was interesting is she said, regarding the politics, I was listening to a podcast that I thought had said it was made in 2018, as soon as they started talking about how over the top the Home Guard was and referencing Godwin's Law, I knew I must have misheard the date. It was actually 2014. It's a little hard to discuss a story like this without pointing out the relevance to current events. I had to look up Godwin's Law. It's basically, they said, if anything online, after a while, someone will bring up that Hitler.
Yep.
And we'll name these. So I had
it will devolve into Hitler at some point. Yeah.
So I think that was really well done. Since we discussed last time, we try to keep politics out of it. I think we did a good job this time. But I think it's very clear. JMS is preaching on his soapbox saying, Earth, we're all humans, and we're fighting over basically pieces of cloth. Any thoughts on her feedback, Lou?
Well, I think we've covered it pretty well in the episode already. So okay. I totally agree with her, Leonard.
Okay, good. Anything, Karen?
Yeah, same thing. And I watched that video that she linked. I'll have to put it in the summary.
Yeah.
I was laughing out loud. And when the girl who's talking, I didn't get her name, I'm sorry. She sings a little song about exposition. And then she talks about this book where the author had, 19 paragraphs of exposition?
Yes.
Before the fight scene? 19 paragraphs. I mean, that just makes me crazy. I won't be picking up that book because I hate that.
I cannot read Tom Clancy books for that very reason. And I think I would love the idea of following Jack Ryan's storyline from being this analyst that ends up being president. Spoilers, but I've never read a book. I've tried. I think I've gotten through one of his.
You've read plenty of books. Just not
Clive Cussler was my favorite of that genre because Clive Cussler just jumps into action and nothing but great stories.
Yeah, I cannot stand that kind of exposition.
Yeah.
Just talk. It makes me want to put down a book.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
all right. Lou, did we get any feedback on our YouTube channel?
Yes, we did for Revelations. A couple of comments. MS Schollard says that in Soul Hunter, the hunter said to Delin, after reading her soul, "You would do such a thing?" That is likely a foreshadowing of her transformation. So that's interesting. Dale Sharp follows up on the comments about the 2010 spacesuit. He's just wanted to clarify that Firefly didn't use this suit. They used the armor from Starship Trooper movie to save money in their show. So it was a similar thing. And Simon is back and talking about Jack's salute to Garibaldi and the cell just before Garibaldi left. This is also a salute based on The Prisoner. And it's the phrase, "Be seeing you." You can spot a Prisoner fan because they will sign off with "Be seeing you," and the hand shape is meant to resemble the number 6. He said that sign has just been recently co-opted for white power. So just some context on that. So that's interesting.
That is very interesting.
And Texas Al Shock is back again. He's talking about Jack, Garibaldi's aide, as we like to call him. He says, was he rescued, or was he simply disappeared because they had no further use for him? And Simon follows up with that. Yes, it's heavily implied in Chrysalis that Jack killed Devereaux in order to tie up loose ends in the conspiracy, so why wouldn't his superiors do the same thing to him? He acts cocksure, but he's just a cat's paw, same as Devereaux was. So that's interesting. And it's, I guess, without the the benefit of the whole series under my belt, I could see that, but just the way the actor played that scene made it seem like he was pretty sure that he was going to get rescued and not killed. But then if he only knows so much, you could say, well, he's just the cat's paw as well. So I get that as well. And then politics in B5, Mike Finney says it's much of it is sadly relevant today, as we've said a couple of times now. And Ika Vilsin said yes, and that is why I love the show from the start.
Great. Very nice. Perfect. All right. So if you want to send us feedback, we would love to hear from it. jklb5podcast@gmail.com. Lou, where can they find us on YouTube and find your fine work?
They can find us on YouTube at Lou's Reviews, and along with B5 Podcast, you'll also find our Stephen King podcast, the Writers Podcast, and our JKLM one-off specials, where we're currently working our way through Station 11.
All right. And Karen?
I'm at Oliveria on Twitter and other places. You can find a link in my bio there to my blog, upon which you can find other things.
Very nice. And I am at Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter. You can hear me talk Bruce Springsteen on Set Listing Bruce. Bruce just released the new album as we're recording this, and I posted my friend Terry Smith from Scotland, and I did an episode where we gave a review, and I had a roundtable yesterday, and I put that out today, though it does say a little bit about the state of fandom. A few months ago, blank hit the fan when Bruce had announced tours and ticket prices went crazy. I had about 25, 30 people that joined me on a roundtable. Yesterday, the roundtable to talk about new music, I got 3 people besides me. But we had a good time.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that's another one in the books.
Mm-hmm.
We are making our way through season 2. Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Lou.
Most welcome.
And everyone, be safe, be kind, and we will talk to you next week. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And scene.